did not want to come back because every summer I came to Woolwine to live with my great-great-granny. That picture right here, the first picture, is my great-great-granny. And she was a slave from the Prim Plantation in Rocky Mount. That's where she came from. Her first child was the slave masters. And the other photos are pictures of my children, grandchildren, and whatever. So you might wonder why we're so integrated in complexions and all. Go to my great-great-grandmother and you get your answer. As for us, for schools, and they wondered why we didn't have a school, why they built Patrick Central. Because the blacks had nowhere to go to get a high school diploma. As far as they could go was to 7th grade. After 7th grade, you had to figure out how you was going to get to Henry County to get an education. So the parents went together and they decided, we'll build this school. And as I told him the other day, and I found out, some of the parents did go as far as to Richmond to try to keep that school open, because I couldn't figure out why you going to close the newest school in town, come up the road 5 miles and build another school. Just didn't make sense. But that was another thing with integration, because there was not enough black parents to fight to keep it open, and the government wasn't going to fund it because we were black. They weren't going to do it. And as you all know now, things are not as free for us blacks as some of you might think they are. And I'll give you a few things with it. I started working at the age of 13 for a nurse here in Stewart. I worked from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock. I made $5. Well, at that time, I didn't know no better. Thought that was great, but it really wasn't. And I was one of the first blacks that went to Bassett Walker. As I told them the other day when I came up here, when I went to Bassett Walker to put an application in, I had a job. My sister-in-law wanted to go there. And at that time, I had a terrible temper. We sat there 2 hours before Mr. Barnes come out to take our application. He said, well, ladies, I'm going to tell you something. I don't have no colored people doing anything but cleaning the bathrooms, and I don't intend to hire none. He said, okay. We left. 2 weeks later, she calls me and says, Gloria, they've hired one, we going back. I said, you know what? You're going to cause me to get killed. I said, we're going to go back. I said, but I'm not interested in this, and I'm not going to take this mess. So we went back. I was the second one hired, and my sister-in-law was the third. There was 3 floors at Bassett Walker, and there was 3 black women. Well, later on, I found out they were so nice to us that Mr. Barnes had called a special meeting to tell them to be extra special to us because we didn't know how to act. When I came down here from West Virginia to stay with my great-great-granny every summer, she taught me a lot. She got $8 a month for money. She couldn't read or write. She could count. She did things by signs. She lost 2 children because we didn't have a hospital. We didn't have nowhere to go. We didn't have no doctors to go to. One of her sons was sliding down a tree, pulled his belly button out, and he died in the yard because he had nowhere to go. She had another son was watching him gamble. He got shot in the head, had nowhere to go, so he dies in the yard. We have come a long way, but we still have a long way to go. And the way I was raised, I guess that's why I don't see a lot of colors, but I'm a people person. I can pick up right away and tell just about where you're going and where you're coming from. And it doesn't make any difference to me because once that skin comes off, we all gonna bleed red and we all gonna be the same. And as the principal told me once, when we leave, and I won't go into all the details. He said, if I was asking him, did I think that we were going to be together, that there was going to be a separate heaven and a separate hell? And I told him, I said, I don't think so. But maybe where you're going is just going to be you, Dad. It's going to be pretty warm. I said, because I tell you, and we've had a lot. My parents, my mother worked at a restaurant for about 8 years. We could not go in. We had to go to the back door to make orders. We had to go to the back door to pick up. Well, when I got grown, I was about 19 or 20. And I've always been a rebellious busybody. And I knew that my mom wasn't going to get the spur ride on me. So I go back to this restaurant. And I order 12 hot dogs. And I order 12 Cokes. And I tell him to take the tops off. So when I go back in, he says, you can wait in the car. I said, okay. And he says, I go in to get him. He says, I can't serve you there. You have to go to the ice cream box. Now, this is after we had been integrated. I looked at him, and I said, I don't think so. He said, well, what am I going to do? I said, start shoving them, I guess. I said, you start shoving them. I said, because I'm not taking them. I said, I've been waiting for this day. My mom worked here for a long time, and I knew then things were going to be rough. And things have been rough for me. But my kids, as y'all look at the pictures, you can see that I have one of the most integrated families that it is. One of the most integrated families that it is. And I don't look at them, whether my son-in-laws are black or white or whatever, they just their name. That's all it is. Because they are just a person. People need to get with the program at this day and time. And things are not good as you all sitting here think they are. We've been building a church for 15 years. We don't owe a dime on it, but it's not complete. Why? Because they won't loan us money to finish. Why? Because we are black. We are black. That's the only reason why we can't get a loan to finish this church. They don't even want to accept the land as collateral for it. So tell me things are good. Just tell me things are good. I know they're not good. I know they're not. But I also tell my kids and my grandkids, know who you are. Know who you are. That's the main thing in life, is to know who you are. What's your questions for me?
How did you get a job at the library?
My baby daughter, Stacy, which was the first and only Miss Patrick County, she wanted a job at the library. She said, Mom, let's go to the library and apply for this job. You only have to type 20 words a minute. You can't do that, you need to give up. I said, I don't want to be there, because there was another place they didn't allow us blacks to go to the library. And I was at National Business when I got my library card, and the teacher walked beside me like I was 2 years old, because she said, you're going to stop off somewhere. I said, I don't want to go in there. But we went ahead, put our application in, and Jane Farley, we got in the car, and she was knocking on the window of the car. She said to me, she said, you come back next week, I'm going to talk to you again. My daughter said, you know what, Mom? If that woman in the 3-inch heels can run that fast and knock on the window, you're going to get that job. So when I got it, she interviewed me 3 times. And when I got it, I said, I'm only going to stay there for 90 days. Because I didn't want to be there, because it was in my brain how we had been treated and couldn't go in. I stayed there 30 years. But she told me after I'd been working with her about a year, she said, Gloria, when I hired you, I thought you was one of those special need people. Only thing you said was good morning and goodbye. She said, if I asked you something, she said, I asked you, did you have a family? You said, yes, I have a family. You didn't elaborate one way or the other, whether you had 10 kids or one. I said, I really didn't have no conversation for you all. But she became my very best friend. She was my best friend. And I know most people think that all blacks steal or do this or that. And they didn't like her either. So they had sent her downstairs to work. And she said, Gloria, I'm putting my pocketbook under this desk. Okay. The next day she said, Gloria, I want to tell you something. I said, what? She said, I had $8,000 in that pocketbook. She said, not one thing was touched. I said, you know, we're labeled that we take everything that don't belong to us. So you got to get to know us. And Betty right here, she was my supervisor for several years. That was my best bud. She still is my best buddy. But I told her she left before I did. And as me being a people person, I told her what was going to happen to her. And when it did, and she came down the hall crying, I said, take it back. Don't want to hear it. Told you it was going to happen. But I came through some good people there and some bad ones. Some good ones and some bad ones. I had 2 good bosses. And the head of me wasn't the best. And I would tell him if he came in the door, he still ain't the best. I know where he's coming from. And when you know a person, it doesn't bother you.
And incidentally, she was one of the best people we ever had working at the library.
Ain't that the truth?
Question. Besides knowing who you are, what was one of the most valuable things you learned from your great-great-grandmother growing up in that era?
In that era, I guess the best thing I learned from her, she would always say, girl, don't take nothing that don't belong to you. Don't let what people say bother you. And always talk to the Lord. She would always talk to the Lord. She couldn't read or write, but she prayed a lot. She taught me how to can, how to make soap, how to make starch. And sometimes my daughter over here will say, how do you know this stuff? I'll say, I came up on the rough side. And you learn this stuff. And I used to go to the Heinz's. Love going to the Heinz's. And they learned me how to tie the bow. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And we get home with May, and I'd say, what time are we going to the barn? And they'd be so mad at me because I wanted to go tie tobacco. And they didn't realize they was making a whole lot more money than we were. But I wanted to learn, and I've always wanted to learn more than one thing. It pays you to know more than one thing.
Sure.
When you opened, at one point you opened up your own cosmetology, a beauty shop in your basement. Did you do that while you on the side, or was that a full-time thing, or?
It was no, I did it at night and on Saturdays.
Okay.
And I did it for 12 years.
Okay.
And I decided it's time to give this up. Because once you got a business at home, you go out on Saturday and do everything you want to do, and just because I'm home, I'm supposed to accommodate you. And I told my husband, this got to go. You're going to sell the equipment, it's got to go. But as some of you may not know, I was asked if I kept my license. I did. And I also drove a handicap bus for Patrick County for 9 years. But a girl asked me, she said, did you keep your license for doing hair? I said, sure. So I can buy products for my girls. There was an opening at Blue Ridge, which is Mulberry Creek now. She was doing her there 2 days a week, and she has a shop. She wanted to know if I would be interested in one day. I went and looked at it for three weeks, I guess. So now I'm doing it there on Tuesdays from 10 to 3. Don't know how long I'll do it. I took it with the understanding If tomorrow is the last day I want to do it, that's the last day I want to do it. But she said you can do it because with the older people and the way these people are, you can laugh right along with them. So that's where I am now. And running with my grandkids.
So how were you treated when you worked at Bassett Walker by your coworkers?
You could tell that they were extra good to. They were extra good to. You could tell that. And after a while, when I found out that he had schooled them to be extra good to us, didn't have nothing to do with the people, because the people couldn't help it. They just wanted a job there like we did. And I was one of the first three that went. Out of the first three, I guess then I was the first one that left. And I left over a break because my floor lady, we worked on the back side, and I was coming to the front side to take a break, and she said, "You've had a break." I said, "Nope." She said, "You took one at the back." I said, "Nope." I just kept stepping. She said, "Well, you're not going to take one." I said, "Well, when I get to the front, my pocketbook's in that box and the door's there. So it'll be up to you what you want to do, but I'm going out." And I left. I didn't work a notice or nothing. I left. I was one of the first 9 that integrated Martin Process. I was one of the first 9 women that went to Martin Process to integrate it. My husband worked at Bassett, J.D. Bassett. Black women couldn't go to J.D. Bassett, but the men could. I decided I wanted to go there and see what was so good that the men could go, but we couldn't go. And I told him, I said, "I'm going to put application in. I'm going to see what's there." And I did. I got on in the cabinet room at Bassett Furniture, J.D. Bassett. And I didn't see nothing. One morning I had my foot propped up on the rail going down. The man asked me, "What's wrong with you?" I said, "I'm looking to see what was so good that I couldn't come in here." And when I went in, this was in the 70s, they still had the sign up, white color, for the bathrooms. Well, Miss Busybody, I'm not going to no colored bathroom. I want to see what's different, that I can't go over here in the white bathroom. So that's where I went. Next morning, that sign was down because I wanted to see what was so good. And I guess I'm still inquisitive. I want to know if you got something so good I can't see it or have part. I want to know what it is.
As a young girl, when you were in West Virginia, were you in a co-camp, and what was that like?
Wonderful. No, we lived on the hill in Kyle. That was about 3 miles below Powhatan and about 3 miles above Welch. We lived in, it was a cinder block house. And I told them it was a white house here and a black house there. But when the coal miners came in on the bus, they all came in as black. They all had a ring around the eye and they all was black. There was no white or black. And that was what I couldn't get used to here, you know. And I told my husband, after we was married, we went back to West Virginia. For the first time when he went back, I said, "Now, when we get to down below, up above Powhatan, pull off." I said, "I'll drive." And at that time he drank. I said, "When we get down here to Powhatan Tavern, you get your beer and you can sit right beside that white man and drink it." He said, "You fixing to get me killed." I said, "Just do what I tell you." And after that happened, he said, "Well, why did y'all come back?" I said, "I didn't have a choice. Because I went to the post office every day for my mom. And every day I knew we were coming back to Virginia, and the train came by very slow. And I'd see different people hopping freight. And I saw this girl step on one day, and I thought, I'm gonna hop this freight. I'm not going back to Virginia. I'm gonna step on this train, and I'm gonna leave. Wherever it takes me, I'll just be gone." But I changed my mind, I didn't. And I'll tell you something that bothered me. My brother, and a lot of you do know him, he went to Surrey and got in trouble there. He got accused of rape. And he got 2 life sentences for it. But when he got accused, my sister and I went to Surrey the next day. Mama was contacted on Friday. On Sunday, my sister and I went to this girl's door. Well, nobody ever heard we knocked on the door. She came to the door, told her who he was. She said he didn't do it, but he's gonna do the time. She said because he don't wanna date me, he don't wanna have nothing to do with me. She was white. She said, but he's gonna do the time, I'm gonna see to that. And you know, often I've thought about it. My sister's dead now, but I told her before she died, I said, you know, there was nobody around. We could have killed her and shut the door and nobody would have never known we'd been there. She said, well, I'm glad you changed. I said, no, but I said, it was a lot to think about. She told us, she said, he didn't do it, but he's going to do the time. And it was 5 years. It took 5 years of his life, and he come out mad. He is mad about a lot of things, and he's judged for a lot. But I guess when they say 2 life sentences, and he says, I'm not going to pre-bargain because I haven't done anything. So you just, you know, we've come up through the ranks. I've come up through the ranks.
Could you talk a little bit more about your great-great-grandmother, like
Dicey.
your great-great-grandmother, where she was born and,
Dicey was born in Rocky Mount.
okay.
She was born in Rocky Mount on the Freeman Plantation. She lived to be 102. Then they said that she could have been older, but she was a big girl when they brought her in the register. And she didn't, I never heard her say anything ugly, never heard her say a curse word or anything. She would always say, girl, you just live like you want people to treat you. And I'm thinking to myself, they don't treat you that way. And I can remember her just getting $8 a month, but she'd always have $1 left at the end of the month. And I can remember her going to the store to buy candy, buy stick candy, and all they would sell her was the crumbs. And she'd be so excited to buy this bag of crumbs. But that's what she did.
Do you know, was she, what kind of work she did when she was on the plantation, or? No.
But I'm gonna look into that now that I'm free. Now that I'm free, I want to know who was her slave master, because her first child was the slave masters. Her first daughter was the slave masters. And when my mama took her to keep her before she died, and at the time I didn't know nothing about Alzheimer's, but I think she had it because when she would sit on the porch, she would always run. And when we would go to give her, she would always sit down and say, please don't tell the master. I'm just trying to get home to see Mama. Please don't tell the master. So I think she probably had Alzheimer's and we just didn't know it.
How old was she when slavery ended? Do you know?
I don't know.
Was the school system good to you?
Yeah. They were good to me, but I didn't send my kids to the integrated school until they had to go. I didn't, you know, around me when they integrated a lot, just sent their kids to Woolwine, but I didn't send mine until they had to go.
Why do you think you did that, Gloria? Do you think because of the way you've been?
Well, I knew that they really didn't want us, but they didn't have a choice. They really didn't, but they didn't have a choice. And so I said, when they don't have a choice, then that's where you all will go. But until you have a choice, you will just go to the black schools.
wasn't, before it was total integration and freedom of choice. That's what brought that about.
Yes.
Because they were totally integrated in 1971. Patrick County waited that long from movement 64 to integrate in 71. It went that long before they decided to integrate.
Mhm.
Tough question. If you had anything in your life to do over differently, what would it be?
What would I do? That's a good question.
Step on that train. I can answer that one.
What?
Step on that train.
You're probably right.
She's always planning a trip. And that's why, because she missed out on that train.
And this is my family here. These are my grandchildren, and as you go down the line, and that's my entire family. And so you might see why
Well, mine is carnal.
why it doesn't bother me. It does not bother me what color you are, how much money you got. Doesn't matter. Doesn't bother me a bit. We always thought that my mother-in-law was white. She didn't know. She was a blonde-headed woman with blue eyes. And I always asked her daddy what he was. And he, to the day he died, he said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what race I am. It doesn't matter.
We have some Patrick Central School graduates here, right here. One of them's on our board of directors, James Hines. Annie Mae Hilton, who worked at the library quite a few years, in the school system library. And weren't you the first black on the school board? I thought that was right. And Mr. William Hines, former William B. Hines, my friend and fellow autograph member.
And John, I'd like to share one thing. My wife's sister, Ethel Frazier, and my sister, Annie, was the first two black teachers hired in Patrick County in the integrated school system.
Ethel Frazier.
Yeah, Ethel was my wife's sister, and my sister Annie, they were the first two
Okay,
hired in Patrick County school system. And the, one other thing, I was hoping that we could have got the old Indian Knob School, but I tried that. I mentioned it and I seen it wasn't going to go anywhere. But it's the last standing, if my memory is correct, it's still standing. And it's down on number 8 on the left, but it's the last standing that was an all-black school prior to 1952, before Patrick Central opened. I started in the first grade in 52, so I didn't have to go to the, I guess you call it the one-room school, that's what it was called.
Lloyd graduated from Patrick Central.
Yes, 4 of us right here, they graduated, Lloyd, William,
thank you.
Annie, myself, and Gloria.
These are just people I know as well. Well, if there are no more questions, I'm sure,
I have a question about the school that you mentioned. Is it still standing there, or has it fallen apart?
The old Indian Knob School.
Yeah.
The structure's still standing. And to the owners now, I'm not sure who owns it right now, but it's changed hands. And to reconstruct the school building, if we owned it, wouldn't take as much, because see, it was never any running water or any kind of indoor plumbing or anything in it. I don't know if there's even ever any electric lights in it. Was there any electric? So it had electric lights. That's the only thing that was other than just a structure. That's all. In fact, the old piano's still in there. Of course, it's inoperable, but it's still in there. I went in and took pictures in Baltimore and showed them to John.
yeah, there was a problem with the ownership of it. There was a problem with who owned it. It was kind of a sticky.
Yeah, it's changed hands from Reverend Robinson came in. They don't own it anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure who owns it now. But once it's demolished, that'll be the last one-room school that's, in the county that's standing.
Maybe we need to talk with the new owners and find out who they are.
You said it's gonna restore.
Oh, really?
I mean, I can't remember the,
Restoration, I thought I saw some work going on.
we
out
did
there.
the roads
The
around.
road, okay, yeah.
I sure wish I could live to see it restored. My brother and sister both went there over the years, I never did have to go.
I thought that was so exciting when I come to my granny's, because y'all went to a one-room school. And I thought that was the most exciting thing ever was. Because I went to school in West Virginia, and it was like the schools here, you know, it wasn't one room. And I thought, well, they get to walk to school and they get to do all these exciting things, didn't know they hated it.
Well, I'm sure Ms. Gloria Barbour will hang around a while. If you think of some other questions, give us a few minutes. We have a little reception back here, some lunch and cookies and a bunch of snacks. If you miss lunch,